I used to love running as a child, like I used to run all the time. But when I started losing my vision, I just thought that part of my life was over. I didn't want to associate myself with the blind community just because I didn't want others thinking that, there was something wrong with me. In this one particular instance, I met this 6-year-old girl who was just really inspiring because she was using her cane and owning her blindness. And
Mm.
I think that was a bit of a turning point for me. I was lost in Central Park. I'd booked a couple Ubers, but I couldn't find where they were. I had no idea how I was going to get back to my hostel.
For people that you can see struggling with their own disabilities, what would you say to them?
I would encourage them to,
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Sparks of Curiosity podcast. My name is Tong, and I'm here with Adi. Adi, before we begin talking about your journey, maybe you could tell something about yourself.
sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Adi. I'm a legally blind keynote and motivational speaker. I love trying out new things and experiencing new parts of the world. And for the longest time, I didn't think I could do that because of my blindness. But last year, I finally learned to accept it, which opened a whole new lot of doors for me. So I would love to discuss a bit about that journey today. And yeah, hopefully you guys can take something away from that.
That's very interesting. You mentioned keynote and motivational speaking. How do you even get started with that?
Yeah, so there's actually like a bit of a process that you can follow. It seems
Hmm.
like it's very random or you just kind of fall into the speaking business, but there are steps you can take to actually get started with that journey. And currently, I've joined like a 12-month mentorship program, which have kind of laid out these steps. And so the steps are as follows, right? So first, you have to obviously develop your speech. You want to, figure out what your topics are, what you want to talk about. For me, I think I want to talk about my journey with my disability, learning to overcome and accept my blindness, and how that opened up a lot of doors for me because I think a lot of people struggle to accept parts of themselves. But first, you develop your speech, and once you have a speech, you can start doing um, go to free speaking opportunities. So consider like Toastmasters, or there's also like Rotary clubs, which are always looking for speakers. And that's a great way to get started and build your brand. And once you have a bit of experience, you got some nice photos, you got some recordings, then you can, put together a show reel, put together a website, start going to podcasts and then slowly just build it up from there. And eventually, once you get to a good stage, you can start reaching out to event organizers and actually get paid for the speaking. And at first you might only be charging like 100, 200, $500, but then as you gain more recognition in the industry, you can start increasing your prices and yeah, keep going in that industry.
Is this something you've always wanted to do? Keynote speaking and motivational speaking?
I don't know if I've always wanted to do it, but I like talking to people and I like being on stage. I've always been a drama kid, I've done stand-up comedy, I've done theater, I've done improv. So I've always liked being on stage and I wanted to figure out how I can make that into a career. And this seemed like the best way for me to go forward. And especially, with my experience being blind, I think I can really inspire a lot of people and help them overcome some of their limiting beliefs, help them overcome some of the challenges they face in their life, and make them like show them that they can actually, make the most of their life with the things that they have at their disposal.
Right. You mentioned that you were legally blind. Do you mind telling us more about your journey with your blindness? So, like, were you blind ever since birth, or is it some condition that kind of changed over time? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, for sure. And just I want to clarify, like blindness is a spectrum. So there may be some people who are completely blind who don't see anything at all. And there are other people who may see a fair bit, but are still considered, visually impaired or legally blind. I fall somewhere in the middle of that. So for me, my central vision is extremely poor. So when I look at your face, Tong, right now, I don't really see any expressions. I just see like a blurry image that's like, waving around back and forth. That's because of my nystagmus, which causes my eyes to shake. And because of that, it's really hard for me to focus on anything. But I do have a bit of peripheral vision. So I have a couple lamps in my room and I can see them, um, you know, when I'm looking straight at you, like I can see a bookshelf to my left. And yeah, I can see like those aspects, but it also depends a lot on contrast. And for me, like my vision wasn't always like this. Growing up, I think I had some issues, Sometimes I would have issues reading things if I was sitting at the back of the classroom and I would be struggling to read the board, or, like playing sports like badminton or cricket where it was more acute. But I still like growing up, I used to play basketball and soccer all the time, really enjoyed it. But as
Mm.
my vision started to deteriorate, those things became harder and harder to do.
Right. Did that impact your life a lot growing up, would you say?
Um, that's a hard question because it definitely impacted my confidence, I would say. I
Right.
always thought, there was something wrong with me, and I didn't really connect with a lot of other blind people growing up. So I didn't really know what the services were for blind people or for visually impaired people. And because of that, like I didn't really have any reference point or an idol that I could look up to. And so I just had to figure that out on my own. And I
Right.
think because of that, I was not too bad, but I think I was a bit socially anxious. Like I didn't know
Right.
how to react in certain situations, and I just didn't believe I could do a lot of the things I wanted in life. Like for example, um, like back in high school, we used to go when I first moved to Canada, we used to like my high school used to go on ski trips. And at first I was really nervous because I was like, oh, my vision won't because of my vision, I won't be able to really ski. But when
Mhm.
I actually went there, and I wasn't the best skier in the world, but after like 4 years of falling and trying to get back up and just keep going, I eventually got to a stage where I could ski to a decent level and not hurt myself too badly.
That's great. It's would be bad if you just kept tumbling down.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, you did say earlier on that you didn't connect with a lot of the blind people before.
hmm
Why would you say that is? Is it just like is it mainly anxiety or is it like the community that was lacking or what would you say that was?
Um, I don't know. Like, I didn't really know that there were other people like me. And I think there was
Right.
also a stigma that, I wanted to hide my disability because I didn't
Right.
want
Okay.
people judging me or thinking that there was something wrong with me. And because of, my vision was fairly normal growing up, so I could pass as quote unquote normal for most of my life. So I didn't really
Mm.
feel the need to reach out or find other blind people. Only until only like in the past couple of years when my vision really started to deteriorate, I found that it was really hard for me to do things. And then that's when I, started connecting with the blind community and figuring out, oh, there's so many things out there that I just didn't know about. And I just
Right.
assumed I couldn't do. So to get back to your question, like, I think it was a lack of awareness that there were these services, but also a bit of a stigma that I didn't want to associate myself with the blind community just because I didn't want others thinking that, there was something wrong with me.
Right. Okay. Would you say that was the tipping point when your vision got to that point where, okay, I really want to, seek a community where people are facing like similar issues like me? Is would you say that was the tipping point for you to reach out and to research about those?
To be honest, I don't think there was a tipping point, but I kind of just fell into it. Um, so I
How
was
does one
looking,
fall into it?
yeah. Yeah, so I like after I graduated from university in 2023,
Mhm.
I was looking for a job and I found like a job at Vision Australia, and Vision Australia is like the largest organization for blind people in Australia.
Yeah.
And so once I got the job, I learned about the services that they provided as well. And after that, I learned about the different blind sports that people play, such as, blind cricket or blind soccer or goalball. And yeah, from there, I just realized like, oh, there's all these opportunities or all these different communities that I can be part of and really make the most of my blindness. And from that, I think I just found out more and more different communities, which kind of changed my perspective on blindness and ultimately changed my life in many ways.
Would you say that you have accepted your blindness now?
Yes, yes, I would say so. And the hardest part for that, I think, was being okay using a cane because even when I started working at Vision Australia, I didn't really feel comfortable using a cane because when I would go outside or like walk around by myself, I didn't want people to judge me or think less of me because I was using a cane. But, that really changed when I went to the summer camp in the US last year. So I was volunteering at a summer camp in California. It's called Enchanted Hills Camp. I think, and that really transformed my life in a lot of ways because there, for the first time, I really connected with blind people who were also my age, and they were, using their canes and going about it without feeling ashamed about it. And in this one particular instance, I met this 6-year-old girl who was just really inspiring because she was using her cane and owning her blindness. And that made her more independent because when I first met her, my job was to guide her to her cabin. But she just decided to take out her cane and start using it to find her path on her own. And
Mhm.
I think that was a bit of a turning point for me because I realized, like, if this little girl can be so accepting of herself and take on her unknown. Why can't I? Like, why can't I do that? And I think that led me to start doing more of the things I wanted, such as travel solo to New York or um, travel solo to other places. And that had a really positive impact on my life.
That's very, very interesting. So it's not like someone handed you a cane being like, you should try this out. This might be life-changing for you, but it's actually seeing a person actually using the cane,
Yeah.
and then you started questioning yourself, like, why can't I be like that? That
Yeah, and it
kind
was a
of,
gradual process, right? Because when I went to the camp, like I was seeing other people using a cane, and I think that slowly alleviated my stigma. And I'm like, okay, these people are normal. Like they're not really
yeah.
ashamed about their cane, and because of that, they're able to be more independent, right? And that's
Mhm.
opening up more opportunities for them. They're able to be more confident and just, yeah, accept themselves for who they are. And when I first started using it, I'm like, I don't really need it. Like I think, still in a bit of a denial. I'm like, yeah, I think I can just get by, just walk slowly and then just don't go out by myself. But when I started using it, I realized I felt a lot more confident. I didn't have like, I wasn't nervous all the time or anxious that I would run into something or always have to watch out for poles or like curbs and, remember where things were. And I could just be more in the moment. And I think that when I started using it slowly, I realized like, oh, this is actually really useful because it's helping me with my confidence and it's allowing me to be more independent, which I never believed was possible for me.
For people that you can see struggling with their own disabilities, what would you say to them?
Um, I think the biggest challenge is learning to accept it because especially if you have something that you can hide or you can pass as normal in society, you feel like you'll be judged if you show your true self. So
Mhm.
I think that's the hardest part. And once you can learn to accept that this is a part of your life and it's not necessarily a bad thing, um, that's when you realize like there's things I can do still, or there are opportunities for me. Like this is not the end of the world. There's still so much out there that can enable me to live the life I want. So
Mhm.
I would encourage them to go on that journey of self-acceptance and see what doors that opens for them.
That's great advice. So, I mean, I know you love to travel, Adi. And I've also, I mean, you've told me that you've been to New York and some other places by yourself. How do you even travel to these places alone, being legally blind, that is? Isn't it scary or daunting for you to visit these places?
Yeah, and a lot of people asked me that during when I was traveling, like, how are
Mm.
you doing this by yourself? Aren't you scared? And at first I was. When I first went to New York, I was scared. I had no idea how I was going to figure things out. But
Mm.
when I actually did it, I realized it wasn't as scary as people made it to be, or I myself thought it would be. Because
Right.
when I think it would be scarier if I wasn't using my cane, but since I had learned to accept it and started using it, whenever I was by myself or, lost in a place, I could just go up to someone and ask them for help because they would see the cane and they would not be, rude to me or blow me off. Like if I just randomly bumped into someone when I was walking without using a cane, they might say like fuck off or like, just watch where you're going and be super rude.
Mm.
But when they bump into me and I'm using a cane, well, it's kind of on them, so they can't really blame me, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm showing my true self and I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. So actually they're in the wrong. And
Mm.
it's I think it's more of a mental barrier than a physical barrier.
Yeah.
Like you have to learn to realize that um once you go out there, like things will be scary, but it's not impossible, right? You just have to learn to trust yourself that you'll be okay and you'll figure
Mm.
things out. And I think one of the things I told myself is that, worst case scenario, let's say I get lost or I can't find where I am, I'll just take an Uber back to my hostel or wherever I'm staying and then get off and just spend the day.
I mean, it does sound pretty daunting as well. When you talked about your trip in New York, I was just thinking to myself, not all the places in the world are necessarily accessible. So are there like processes that you take or follow before you proceed with the trip? Like, do you check it online or do you just make the booking and hope for the best?
Yeah, so I try to prepare as much as possible beforehand.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
like trying to figure out, what their public transportation system is like, what their ride hailing services are like, and
Right.
if I
Okay.
can learn, if it's a new country that I don't speak the language of, I try to understand, if there's any easy words that I can learn that if I'm
Mm.
stuck somewhere, I can ask someone for help and they would be okay. So those are the biggest things I check for. And yeah, like I think if I'm traveling by myself, I'll always go to bigger cities. So, like, let's say,
Right.
like, London or Paris or New York or like Bangkok, because in there you usually have very multicultural people, and, there's a high chance that at least someone will speak English, right? And
Mhm.
and since these are such global cities as well, they are more likely to be accessible. And
I
yeah,
see.
just plan my trip around that. And if I can, I would also connect with the local, organizations for blind people if they have any, see if they can offer me any advice. and if they can offer me any guidance, because that can always be helpful when you're traveling to a new city. And yeah, just do a bit of as much planning as I can do, and then
Mhm.
just go for it, because there's a point where you're like, there's only so much planning you can actually do. At some
Right.
point, you have to just take the leap of
Actually
faith
take a
and
leap of faith.
go for it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's good to plan and learn as much about the local environment as you can beforehand, because
Yeah,
I think I love to arm myself with knowledge, but how much of it actually comes in handy? Like, I don't know. You just have to. I think it just makes me feel more comfortable or confident that, yeah,
for
I
sure.
know enough about this place and now I can travel.
For sure, for sure. I mean, if all you do is plan, then you'll just procrastinate. The trip will never happen.
Yeah,
You
and
talked about, yeah,
sorry, I
go
just want
on.
to add one more thing. Um, it's also important to be safe when you're traveling, solo by
Mhm.
yourself. So I don't take risks that are necessary. For example, like I won't really go to any rural areas or where I know it's going to be hard for me to find, like a cab or like a ride hailing service, or go
Mm.
hiking by myself and things like that. Because that's just, I feel like being stupid, because I
Irresponsible.
I want to travel the world, but I want to be able to travel the world, right? Like I don't want to put myself in a situation
Yeah.
where I know I can actually put harm to myself. So it's also, you have to understand the reality of it. Like, yeah, there's probably, I'm not like other people who can travel solo anywhere around the world, but there are enough cities to sate my curiosity. There's so many places I haven't been to yet, and
Mm.
I would love to still go there someday.
Definitely. I was going to ask you as well, because you mentioned local blind communities. How do you
Hmm.
go about reaching out to them? Like, how do you know about them? Is your current one connected to like all the ones internationally, or how does that work actually?
Yeah, so I think the best way to go about it is just search online first. If I'm going to
Mhm.
a new city, I'll see what local blind communities there are. Like, let's say if I'm going to London, like I'll search up, all the different organizations they have, and usually they'll have some sort of email or phone number, so you can just, contact them, like say,
Okay.
hey, I'm a blind person. I'll be traveling to London from this. Do you have any advice for me, or do you have any support services that I can utilize while I'm out there? And
No. Oh,
sometimes they'll have something that they can help you with. Other times they might not be able to help you, or they might just guide you in the right directions, or tell you about things that you can connect with, or if you're lucky, you can connect with a local blind person there and learn about their experiences. So if you
mm,
just take that simple step, um, you may or may not find any actual useful thing out of it, but I think it's still good
right.
to, just do that outreach. So if there is anything they can offer, you can always utilize it.
Yeah. And when you were traveling in New York, sorry, do you face any challenges at all, or like navigation wise, or just about anything, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think there's challenges every step of the way, right? For
Okay.
example, when I first got to my hostel, I couldn't even find my room because there's so many room numbers on the floor. And so I used different apps to read things, but they weren't
Okay.
working because I didn't have any internet connection in the building for some reason. I hadn't connected their Wi-Fi. So I couldn't even find my room. And that was my first day. I was kind of panicking. I'm like, I don't know what I've signed up for. But,
Mm,
you know, after walking around for a while and not being able to find some and like find my room, I eventually saw a couple who was leaving their room and going to the elevator. So I just pulled out my cane and asked them like, "Hey, this is my room number. Can you please help me find it?" And
yeah.
at first, like that was the first time I'd done that, so I was a bit nervous. I was like, I don't know how they're going to respond. Are they gonna look at me weird, or what are they going to do? But
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, sure. What's your like, come on. Like they asked me for my room number, and they're like, yeah, do you want any help with your bags? We can carry a bag for you. But I'm like, nah, just guide me to the right room. And yeah, they
Right.
they did that. So it was it was really easy. And I
Right.
think what I've realized is, especially with the recent advancements in AI and technology, we try
Yeah.
and rely on these tools to find what we're looking for. Let's say like you're at a restaurant and you might pull out your AI smart glasses or your phone and scan the menu and try to read it or like zoom it. But there's always like simpler ways to do things. You can just ask someone for help.
Ask.
Yeah, like,
Right.
and it seems so simple, but I've seen, other blind people who will spend like 30 minutes or 45 minutes trying to struggle through reading the menu or do something by themselves and not ask for help.
Yeah.
And look, I understand that, and I've certainly done that because I used to be exactly like that. I would circle a place like 10 times and make sure exactly which it was the correct restaurant because I didn't want
Yeah.
to get embarrassed and be like walk into the wrong one, right? So
Mm.
I understand where they're coming from and I've been there, but it's so much easier to just ask. Like, and I think as
100%.
a blind person, that's your greatest asset is other human
Mm.
beings. Like AI and
Mm.
technology is great, but I find it oftentimes a lot easier. Just ask for help if you see another human being.
Right. It's very interesting that you mentioned that because I think we've all become so out of touch with reality. Everyone's like trying to rely on these apps that you're talking about in social media. Like what happened to just asking a local what their favorite restaurant is?
Yeah,
Like why do you have to go on Google Maps and look at 4.4 stars, 4.3 stars? What does it even mean?
yeah.
Um, so that's very interesting that you talked about that. Are there any standout stories that you have from your New York trip or like any of your travels actually that you'd like to share?
Oh, I think there's so many, but I think I'll share like a couple that I think really, stood out to me and really motivated me to keep doing this. Um, the first one is I think it was my second or third day in New York, and I was lost in Central Park. I'd booked a couple Ubers, but I couldn't find where they were. So the Uber drivers had just canceled and they were off on their own way. So I was really kind of struggling. I had no idea how I was going to get back to my hostel. And then, this guy came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, are you lost?" And he told me that he's a tuk-tuk driver and can drive me back to my home. And at first, I was super skeptical. I'm like, this random guy is just coming up to me. Can I really trust him? Like, what if he just robs me or steals my kidney or something, right? Takes me to a random
Right.
alley. But, I decided to put my faith into him. I decided to trust him, and I really had no option. So I just got in the back of the tuk-tuk, and he started driving, and then I think that entire ride lasted less than 5 minutes. But by the time we got there, like I was like, oh, he actually got me to my hostel. And when I asked him how much I owed him, he said, no, it's free for you. And that like completely changed my perspective because this entire time I'd spend that entire time building a monster in my head and failed to see like a kind human being right in front of me, right? So
Mhm.
that showed me that, the headlines we see, all the things we see online, like people getting murdered and robbed and whatnot, like they are happening, but they're not the reality we live in. There are so
Mhm.
many more kind people and helpful people that are out there, that you just gotta put your trust in them. And of course, you have to be careful. Like you can't trust anyone, but just know that, not everyone is like that, and there's so much kindness out there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that was like a really beautiful story, and that completely changed my perspective. And this other time that I would also like to share is that this other story is when I was in Bangkok and I wanted to go to a concert by myself. and I didn't even speak the language. Like I don't know any words of Thai, and I was really struggling. Like, should I go? Should I not go? What should I do? And I'm like, screw
Right.
it. I'm just gonna book my ticket and I'll figure it out when I get there, right? Um, so on the day of the concert, I booked a cab from my hotel and then went there. The driver dropped me off, and even though I couldn't speak the language, people like I asked them, ticket. I'm trying to find my ticket. Where do I get my ticket? And
Mhm.
people just showed me the way, like pointed me like, oh, go there, go that way, or like go this way. And eventually I got to the ticket counter, got my ticket, and then made it to the place where the concert was, found where I was supposed to stand, and had an amazing time. And that just showed me that I can, even though I can't speak the language, like I can still travel in an unknown environment. And that was really enlightening for me and confidence boosting for me because,
Yeah.
of course, I was nervous, right? I didn't know how I was going to do this crazy thing because, like, I can use Google Translate, but that doesn't really always work. So
Mm.
it was a very crazy experience, but I realized, like, yeah, you just have to trust yourself and take a leap of faith, and things will eventually work out.
It's very interesting. Wow, it sounds like you're not done traveling yet. I think there's still a lot more places for you to explore, and I'm very happy for you. Um, just to conclude this section, perhaps maybe are there any takeaway lessons that you have learned overall that you would like to share?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that things aren't as scary as they seem to be. Because
Hmm.
when I first went to New York, I was very scared. And again, when I went to Bangkok, I was scared. But I realized like if you just take small steps towards your goal and don't think too much about how all the things could go wrong, you are most likely going to be fine. And you have to be safe. So wherever you go, make sure you're being safe, but also learn to trust yourself that you'll be okay.
So just
Yeah.
don't be stupid, putting yourself in situations where you won't be able to, putting your health and life at risk or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think I like to give you an example. Like when I was in New York, I
hmm.
wasn't going into some random quiet alleyways in the middle of the night,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I
right,
was I was staying in places where there was lots of people around me and there was, they're relatively safe areas. And
right.
if you go down a stupid path, like decide to go into a dark alley, which is super quiet, like, of course, if something happens to you, that's kind of your fault. So you can't,
Yeah,
and obviously,
exactly.
like when I was by myself, I wasn't wearing like a gold chain and a Rolex and walking around showing it off to people, right? Because that's just tempting people to rob you. Um, so just yeah, don't be stupid and um, just have fun, I guess.
Mm, for sure. Um, another thing that I mean you've told me is that you've also started getting into running. So I want to talk about that for a little bit. How did you get into running? I remember you signed up for a marathon as well.
Yeah, so I signed up for a marathon and it's happening in a month. But I used to love running as a child. Like I used to run all the time, do a lot of different races. But when I started losing my vision, I just thought that part of my life was over because I didn't think, I could run by myself anymore. I would run into poles or trip and fall and hurt myself. So once I started losing my vision, I kind of gave up on that hobby. But then I found out about Achilles, which is a running club that helps people who have disabilities get involved with running. They cater for all disabilities, but they're primarily focused for visually impaired people, and they help, visually impaired people run with a guide so they can still do the runs, and enjoy running and be active in the community and yeah, do something they enjoy doing. Um, I remember I did like a 5K run and that was a very life-changing experience for me because like for the past few years or 4 or 5 years, I basically stopped running, doing a lot of physical activities that I previously used to do. But when I did that first run with my guide, I realized like, oh, there's still so much out there for me that I haven't explored, and there's still so much I can do. I just need the right support. And then I think when I did the first 5K run, I'm like, yeah, I want to continue doing this. And I signed up for a marathon because I wanted to challenge myself and see what else my limits were. Because previously I had self-imposed this limit on myself that I couldn't run or I couldn't hike or I couldn't do all these other things. But when I found out that, oh, I was actually capable of running, then I'm like, okay, let's see how far I can take it. And let's try to break the limiting beliefs I had about what I could and couldn't do.
Mm, for sure. I'm just trying to think about it. Um, like how does it actually work when you run with Achilles? Like, is there someone that runs alongside you, like side by side, or
Yeah. So I usually run with a guide, and what they'll do is like we'll have a tether between us. We usually
okay,
just use a lanyard. So the guide is holding one end of the lanyard, I'm holding the other, and then we're just running alongside each other. And then as obstacles come in the way, they'll tell me like, okay, pole coming in, 3, 2, 1, and stay close to me. Then we avoid the pole, or if there's people that are coming towards us, they'll be like, stay left. Or if we're crossing someone, they'll be like, oh, we're taking on your right, just so they're informing the people who are around us that, there's like a blind runner and we're passing on your right, and things like that. And if we're turning right, they'll
oh,
be like, oh, turning right in 3, 2, 1, and then we turn right. And the tether also gives a bit of a tactile feedback.
feedback, right?
So if
Mm.
I'm going too much off into one direction, they can just slightly nudge me and bring me back.
Towards the right
So
direction.
yeah,
Mm.
that's how it
Wow,
works.
okay. Was it challenging for you at all, or did you face any challenges when running initially?
Yeah, I think when I first started running, I was a bit over ambitious. So
Okay.
I didn't really train properly and ended up injuring myself.
This was
And
for the 5K run, sorry?
no, so this was when I first started running. I think within 2, 3 months, I decided I want to run a marathon, and I just
Okay.
started training for it without actually following any proper plan. And
Okay.
so I just kind of injured myself within like the first month of my marathon training,
Oh
and
no.
I had to sit out for a couple months, and I was really like doubting myself at that point.
Mm,
I was thinking like whether I'm actually capable or not. Can I actually run a
yeah.
marathon, or is that actually just meant for other people? Um, but eventually my ankle recovered. I started going back to training, did a couple of half marathons, and yeah, now I'm on track to hopefully be running my first marathon in about a month. And another challenge that you face as a blind runner is not the physical. The physical is obviously challenging if you're running a marathon, but also the
Yeah.
logistical aspect, which not many people think about. Because for me, I can't really run on a treadmill because it's hard for me to see the screen and all the different
Mhm.
buttons. But also it's just incredibly boring if you're running on a treadmill for like 2 hours straight.
Yes, it
So
is.
you have
Mhm.
to find a guide who's also available. You have to coordinate where you're going to meet and
Right.
how you're actually going to get your runs in, right? So
Yes.
for me, as I'm training for a marathon, there's like a whole team of guys. Like there's like 2, 3 different guides who are helping me get my training runs done. And we're trying to always, coordinate, okay, we're going to meet here, we're going to run for this long, and then I'm going to come back to my house. And then the other thing I also have to worry about is like now that it's starting to get colder in the winter in Melbourne, I have
Yeah.
to like carry my jacket with me because like for example, I went for a run today and it's like 10 degrees. By the time I'm coming back, it may be like 5 degrees, right? So
Mm.
where do I put my jacket if I'm just going for a run in the park? Like there's no where for me to put my jacket. So I had to carry my jacket on my bag or like carry a bag and then have a jacket with me so I can put it on after the run and not get cold. So you have to think about all those logistical aspects of running as a blind person because there may not be a guide available where you are living, or the temperature might not be the best, and it just takes a lot longer because you have to navigate to meet another guide. So those are additional challenges that you have to overcome when you're actually running as a blind person. And Achilles, that's why it's just really amazing because all these other guides, they're putting their time, they're putting their effort to help us, run and complete our dreams. And of course, it's also good for them because they get amazing chatting partner and they get to enjoy running as well. Like they're also
Mm.
it's beneficial for them as well. But I think we receive so much from them, which is why I'm so grateful for an organization like Achilles.
For sure, for sure. I didn't even know that those organizations existed.
Me neither.
So do they only do it for running, or do they also have like these helpers, partners for other sports or activities?
Yeah, so I think the primary one is running, but then depending on the branch you go to or how much support or um not funding, but how popular it is in the city that
Mm.
it's in, they also do like um bike riding, so like tandem riding. And I think with us in Melbourne, we also do a bit of open water swimming. So we'll get a
Wow,
guide who we'll strap together with some sort of a makeshift tether. And that's actually also super interesting. So
that is
when
very
we
interesting.
go for open water swimming, I actually have a tether which is strapped to my knee. So it's like I think I
Right.
take like a bit of a dog leash or a bungee cord and put
Yeah.
Velcro on either side. So one
Okay.
side straps to my knee and the other part straps to my guide's knee. And
Yeah.
then we're just both swimming off in the ocean. And that's so much fun because, it just gives you a whole new experience to
Yeah.
compare to swimming in the pool. And it's so much fun.
Wow. That is so cool. I didn't even know that they had that. So that's really new for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, having done all of that, actually, like running and swimming, um, do you think those things you were able to apply to different aspects of your life eventually?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially training for a marathon is
Hmm.
very similar to how I approach achieving my goals in life because
Right.
a marathon is a huge goal if you think about it, right? You're running 42 kilometers, and most of us can't comprehend how we're going to run 42 kilometers if you should just think about it.
Yeah.
But if you just break it down into smaller sections and take it one step at a time, you realize, like, oh, I can actually do this. And that's what I do with my training. Like when I'm doing a longer run, I'll be like, oh, that's 20 kilometers. So that's just 5 park runs, right? And I don't know if you know about park runs, but park run is this thing where I do like a 5K run every Saturday and it's all around the world. And I've done like so many of those park runs. I've run 5 kilometers so many times. So when I'm preparing for a long run or I'm doing a long run, I'm like, oh, if I'm 5 kilometers in, I'm like, okay, just 3 more park runs to go because I know that I can do a park run. So I just need to do a park run 3 more times and then I'll be done with my run. And
Mm.
by breaking that goal down into smaller chunks, um, I think I boost my self-confidence that actually I can do it and just
Yeah.
seems a lot more doable compared to, thinking about the entire 42 kilometers and how you're going to do it.
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. I think some people they just look at the number and like, yep, I'm not doing that. But then if you actually break it down, no, you actually break it down and take your time with it, then yeah, for sure. Okay, I think we've come to a point where we talked about um just about everything.
Hmm.
From your travels to running. I would like to ask you, is there one last key message that you would like to leave our audience with? That could be just about anything.
Yeah, and this is a message that I share with my keynotes and my motivational speaking. And we didn't touch on this as much, but the message I want to share people is embrace your vulnerability because that's your compass in life. And I realized like when you learn to accept yourself for who you are, you can finally start doing the things you want in your life. And the first step is always that acceptance. And once you do, you realize there's always more opportunities out there.
Mm. So we at the Sparks of Curiosity, we like to ask our guests what book they like to read because we like reading, or what podcast they listen to. Do you have any recommendations for our listeners?
Yeah, and I love reading as well. There's so many recommendations I can give, but I'll stick to one, which is a bit of a theme for me for this year. But the
Okay.
one book I want to recommend is called The One Thing, and it's it basically tells you to focus on one thing that you want to accomplish in your life so that all the other goals you want to do um, become much easier to do, or you don't even need to worry about them. And
Mm.
my focus for this year is, just focusing on that one thing, which is the public speaking. And if something in my life um, isn't isn't helping me achieve my goal of becoming a motivational keynote speaker, I've decided to just cut it out or postpone it. And
Hmm.
to give you an example, like last year, I was doing improv, I was doing stand-up comedy, I was running my own podcast, I was traveling a lot, I was doing all these things that I really really wanted to do, and when I started this year, I'm like, I still want to do all of those things. But I realized if I did all of those things, I wouldn't really be able to do any of them to the best of my capability. So I decided to cut down on a lot of them and just focus on one aspect of my life. And, once I become a successful motivational speaker, I'll be able to do all those things anyway. Like I'll be able to travel more, I can pursue more of my hobbies and that'll make it easier for me to just do those things.
For sure. It's interesting. Gotta give that a read. Finally, how do we get in touch with you? So for anyone that's listening who's interested in your journey, who's interested in listening to your motivational speeches, how would they be able to get in touch with you? Do you have like social media or anything?
Yeah, so you can follow me on my Instagram and the handle is underscore the blind voyager underscore. Um, you can follow me on LinkedIn and that's just my name, Aditya Gupta, Aadityaa. And yeah, just feel free to connect with me on any of those platforms. Send me a message. I'd love to have a chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adi, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Lots of things that, I got out of this podcast episode. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.